We are less than 24 hours from an inauguration of a new president. Give me a word or phrase to describe the United States of America the day before we have that inauguration. Harold.
Turmoil.
Camille.
Seeking solutions.
Jim.
Divided.
Lisa.
Deceased.
Deceased. Oh my God.
Amen.
Stephen.
Lost.
Kimberly.
Polarized.
Divided.
Spencer.
Delusional.
This is awful. This is awful. But Lisa, yours is the worst of all because you said deceased.
I believe
Why?
deceased. Well, because I do believe the election was stolen. I don't believe there will ever be another free and fair election again in this country,
Right.
which means there will be absolutely no voice for the people. The Constitution is going, if it's not
Dead and gone.
ready, it's already up in flames. It'll be gone by noon tomorrow. And
Spencer, I'm watching your face. I'm looking at you shaking your head and explain to me what's going through your head right now as you listen to Lisa.
How appropriate my word delusional was. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You have people who have chosen to completely ignore facts and reason for fantasy and wild delusion.
That's not true.
Really?
Yeah.
That is not true.
I think he's absolutely right.
100% agree.
Yes.
You too.
That is not true.
And are in,
We're looking at the facts on the ground, and Biden has already agreed. He's going to pack the courts.
What facts do you need to see other than the courts and the state?
He's going to pack the courts.
Court hasn't said anything.
Regulation. He's going to bring in regulation that's going to strangle business. He's going to do things through the bureaucracy of the government. He's going to change the rules in Congress so that Democrats will be able to steal elections from this point forward. And just look at House Resolution Bill number 1. Look at House Resolution Bill number 1. Before you laugh at me, you need to read what Nancy Pelosi is proposing.
I've read that
in her
bill. It's a very good bill.
Tell me what was done to steal the election. I just need to know that. Does somebody tell me that? Because 60 courts have already knocked it out.
On election night.
I have worked for the GOP. I have never in my life not voted straight party ticket, and I voted for Joe Biden for the first time. And I withdrew from the party. I withdrew from the party in December because the conversation that's going on right now is embarrassing to be associated with.
Embarrassing.
Republicans are embarrassing
across the world.
I take it none of you.
Let's get back to the facts.
None of you listened to any of the hearings.
Somebody please. No, I have a question on the floor. Somebody please explain what facts you have that has not been shown.
Well, you're not even
right now. We don't know. There's no facts out there.
Stop.
You're just blabbing. You're not even listening to anybody's response.
I'm trying to.
You're not listening to anybody's response.
Pamela, give a response then.
Everybody stop.
Did you go and listen to the Georgia hearing?
Pamela, stop. Pamela, stop. Camille, everybody.
Any of the Georgia hearings?
Pamela, stop, or I will disconnect you.
Yeah.
You will be respectful. You will stop talking over everybody. We don't behave that way in this country. You owe these people an apology because you did not give them a chance.
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
You're going.
Fine. You're going to look so foolish when you're played on TV tomorrow. Say something that makes you look foolish. Go ahead. I've really had it. I've had it with how people behave towards each other. I've had it with the rudeness. I've had it with the yelling and the screaming. Why can't we have a normal conversation? You people dislike Congress because you said they don't get along. Well, you behave the same way they do. You do exactly what they do.
Hey, Frank, I'd like to know how many people on this panel know anyone who went to Washington.
Okay, how many of you know someone who went to Washington?
I do.
Stephanie, Pamela, actually,
I live outside of Washington. I wasn't trying to go to Washington.
6 of you know someone who went there. Do you have anything to share about your attitudes towards what happened on the 6th?
I'm glad several of them have been arrested.
I'm appalled. I'm ashamed, and I think everyone who breached the Capitol security should be found and arrested. I think they're doing a good job of rounding them up. It's going to take years, but justice needs to be served upon every single insurrectionist.
Why were you there? BLM should be lined up.
Why were you there?
Most of
I
the
think
as
a Republican, as a Republican, I was embarrassed.
Were you there?
Flat out embarrassed.
Did you have friends there? Anyone there that you knew? No. I had 3 friends there, and they all said that there was a lot of Antifa there.
Right.
And were you there?
Immediately.
Well, why are you laughing? Let me talk. Let me talk.
Exactly.
Why do you have to be so rude?
I didn't interrupt you.
Let me talk. I had 3 friends that were there.
Yeah.
You weren't there.
You
know what? It's not even worth talking, and no one can be civilized.
If there was Antifa there, they should be arrested too.
They have been.
Equal justice.
They have been. My friends that were there said everyone they were around was very peaceful.
I'm sure they were. Anyone who crossed Capitol security was an insurrectionist and committed a heinous crime that was an embarrassment to the United States and dangerous to our democracy.
At the end of the day, you have to look at the goals and the intent. The intent of those guys.
Well, you know what? I think
I want to say this.
They should treat the people who attacked the Capitol the same way they treat the protesters. The people who attacked the Capitol, they should crack them over the head. They should throw some tear gas on them. They should shoot rubber bullets at them. They should line
You're right, Morris.
Where was all of this passion when Bill Ayers
Not one insurrectionist should have been allowed to leave the scene of that crime. They should have had
where were the
lined
arrests?
up to take each and every one of them to jail.
Too bad you didn't speak out like that last summer when all that burning and looting was going on.
Yeah.
Lock them
Yeah,
up.
you didn't say something then like that.
Why do Republicans get mad when a building is burned down, not when the Capitol?
Foulest hypocrites known.
It's just a little personal property. It's just, you know.
Hypocrites, yes, Spencer, thank you.
Looting a store for tweaking
property.
is
The
different
election
from
said
breaching a Capitol building.
Looting the store and causing property damage.
Can I make an observation?
Property damage versus interfering with the constitutional process is a totally different thing.
Would never accept what black people accept in this country. White children were being shot down by the police. This country would have revolted generations ago. White people don't accept abuse, but they dish it out. They are hypocrites. Black people have been on the receiving end of violence
Rational.
in white society for 400 years. And if black people say, stop shooting our children, you say they're violent. You say they're protesting. You say they're terrorists. But white people go out and attack the United States Capitol. While the Congress is
Spencer,
looking for representatives to murder.
Can we have a consensus on what we do in the economy? What's the first step you want Joe Biden and Congress to do addressing the economy? It can be anybody.
Resign.
Open up the economy.
Can we go one at a time?
Get control of the virus.
Enforce the borders.
I'm asking for economic responses.
I think Spencer's right. I think
Infrastructure.
you got to get hold of COVID first. I mean, that's Trump blew off COVID for months. You know, Biden's been talking about COVID a lot. That's why I give him a lot of respect. That's all he's been talking about. And Trump, that's why I've kind of left Trump, because he kind of just blew off COVID. He thought it was a big joke. I ended up having it for
It is a joke.
My mother died. Well, it's not a joke. My mother died from it.
My uncle died from COVID.
Okay, so who said it was a joke?
First priority.
Okay, my mother died from it. So don't tell me it's a joke.
Right.
From complications of it.
A low blow.
I think that Biden needs to seriously consider not reinstating a lot of the regulations that were choking the economy before. I think that our economy is a great engine. I'm a stock trader. I'm making money right now. I plan to make money through whatever president there is. I think our people and our economy is strong, but we really need to be careful with the regulations and the economy killing things. And we've got to get open. We've got to get our small businesses. They're the engine of our economy. We've got to safely open our businesses.
Meredith, I 100% agree. Biden needs to take control of COVID and get small businesses, get Main Street open, get our lives back to a new normal, but as close to the old normal as possible. And then he needs to run an economy correctly and not falsely, not take out trillions of dollars of debt. He needs to start rebalancing the budget correctly. He needs to start righting the economy. The economy is propped up right now falsely, and that's never going to happen. It's precipitously on a cliff and could fall at any moment if the ship is not righted. I think Biden's going to do just fine keeping it up there, but he's got to make sure it's a tough balancing act. He was left with a really bad hand.
A word or phrase. When I say Wall Street, what do you think of? Come up with a word or phrase. Here we go. Word or phrase to describe Wall Street. Pamela.
Crooked.
Annie.
Greedy.
Brian.
A fantasy.
Jamie.
Greed.
Michael.
Disgusting.
RK.
Propped up.
Spencer.
Business as usual.
Alec.
Greedy and corrupt.
Wendy.
An illusion.
Lisa.
Corrupt.
Stephanie.
Wonderful.
Kimberly.
Capitalism.
Mark.
Overregulated.
Morris.
Overvalued.
Harold.
Free enterprise.
Camille.
Killing it.
Jim.
Capitalism.
Meredith. Who is hoping that they will put some serious regulations and limits on Wall Street? Anybody?
It needs to be something.
Oh, me, absolutely.
Okay, Alec, Brian, Jamie, and Michael. Alec, what do you want to see the administration and Congress do with Wall Street?
Well, one, I'd like no one in Wall Street to work in the administration. I think the revolving door is an issue.
I mean, does no one have a retirement account?
Too late for that.
Yes, too late. He's already appointed everybody.
Why not?
They're all from Wall Street.
Yep.
Alec, why do you not want anyone from Wall Street working in the administration?
Because I don't think that their values line up with the American people. I think they just want to enrich the corporations that they worked for. I don't think they care about everyday working people.
Don't work for corporations.
I take personal offense at that because I was a stockbroker for 26 years. And I can tell you, I cared very deeply about my clients, all 800 of them.
Ryan, what do you want them to do with Wall Street?
I'd like to see some regulations. I'd like to see something done with all the off-the-book trading that happens. I'd like to see banks, big banks broken up. I don't see, we've allowed, banks to pretty much do everything, whereas they used to be segregated. You had a silo here and a silo there.
Jamie, what would you like to see Wall Street policy be?
I'd like to see more or any regulation of hedge funds. I would like to see, things like wealth taxes, actual prosecution of securities fraud would be a great thing to see.
Tax policy. Is there any consensus? And Phoebe, I'll start with you. Phoebe, what would you like to see tax policy be going forward?
I feel like our tax policy should be more towards the people who have money. There's a lot of people that don't have money that were born here, raised here, generations and generations. But I see the big corporations like, hello, Amazon, and some of these people that don't even pay taxes. Like, that's crazy to me. Are we allowed to swear?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's fucking crazy to me. How can they get away with shit like that? It's like getting away with murder. And if you have money, you do get away with murder. And I would like to see the playing field be more equal. I can't, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm getting emotional already. I've been here for 5 minutes.
Spencer, what would you like to see tax policy be?
Well, there has to be major reform. If a purported billionaire can pay $750 in tax returns, then the whole system is flawed from probably top to bottom. There's got to be massive reform. There's got to be fairness injected into the system.
Fairness.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be able to expect that those who've received the greatest benefits from the economic system would also then have the highest responsibility to contribute.
Lisa, what would you say for tax policy?
I'd like to see it. I would like to see it cut to the bone. The reforms I would like to see to offset that would be cuts to social programs. I think consumption tax is the way to go. I don't believe those who have benefited from capitalism have the highest responsibility to pay the highest taxes.
Jim, what would you like to see with tax policy?
Less taxes for me. I think we're overtaxed in everything we do.
Then how are we going to pay for these $1 trillion bailouts and stimulus packages?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm very anti-tax. That's probably why I have a more conservative view in certain things. But I just think we're taxed too much. Now that's a good question. I don't know.
I want a show of hands. Congressman Gottheimer asked you a question, and what was it? What was the number? $1,400
person per family. So that could be per kid too. So $1,400 if you make less than $150,000 a year.
How many of you support that? Raise your hands. How many of you oppose that? Raise your hands. So a lot more people support it than oppose it. So that means there has to be some Trump voters who support it, or some Republicans. Jim, you support it. Kimberly, do you?
Yes, I support it. I think people are really hurting, especially in Detroit area, where I'm in Detroit area. People are really struggling. We've been closed down a lot more than a lot of states have. Our restaurants are closed. People are really struggling. We're not like Florida that's open. So I would think that it would benefit some families that are struggling now, especially the waiters, the waitresses, the cooks in these restaurants, because they've been closed for a long time.
Kimberly, do you support or oppose this?
I would support it with the caveat that I think that threshold is a bit high. I would want it to be much more targeted, perhaps a little bit more for a lower threshold, but I think the idea is a good one, yes.
Is there any other Republican who support or Trump voter who supports this?
I support it.
Okay, Josh, this is a big deal because this is the first time that they're crossing lines.
In my committees, I serve on the Armed Services Committee and I also serve on the Veterans Affairs Committee. And newly this Congress, I'll also be joining the Homeland Security Committee. And we really haven't brought up the topic yet in the discussion about national defense and the threats that we face as a country. So I wanted to put out there, what people think is our biggest threat internationally as far as national defense is concerned, and what would you like us to do and focus on specifically relative to the military and our ability to defend our country. So I'd love to start with Pamela. I see your cat. That's cat number 2. Would love to hear their names and then hear what's on your mind about national defense.
This is Dusty.
Oh, hi, Dusty.
I would think that China is our #1 threat, and I would confiscate every piece of land that they own here in the United States, and I would cancel out every debt that we owe them.
So do you think that about China because their military is growing? Do you hear a lot about, their ships and aircraft and, missiles that they're putting on all these islands that they're building? Or
Plus what they just did with releasing their virus here in the United States. That was an attack on our country. That was an intentional attack on our country. And it should never have happened. So yes, I believe our country was going too well. And President Trump had slapped them with too many tariffs. And that was their way of getting back at us.
Brian, what are you thinking about with national defense?
Well, China is our biggest economic threat. They're all over the world building hospitals, infrastructure in Africa, rare earth minerals, what have you. Russia is also a threat. They're a malicious threat. Russia isn't the empire it thinks it is. or it once was, but they still want to be that. And they're both threats as far as I'm concerned. And Joe Biden's going to have a lot of work on his hands, but he has to reassert how we dealt with them prior, and what we've done with Russia in the last 4 years is obscene. How Trump basically bent over for Russia. It's disgusting to watch.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I think Camille wanted to speak, and then I'd love to hear what Harold has to say, and then I'll turn it over to one of my other colleagues.
Okay. I'm going to be the bad guy here. Harold cannot go because we're running out of time. So
okay, so Camille, you have the last word.
So
Go ahead.
There's three things to me, and first and foremost is cybersecurity, cyber warfare, and getting prepared for that, because I think our country is vulnerable. We're not ahead of the game on this, and because of the hacks that happen in the federal government agencies and hacks that happen with our companies, we're not ready. The second thing is I'm concerned about weaponized pathogens, whether or not people think that the COVID was intentional from China or not. I'm just concerned about bad actors getting their hands on labs and getting their hands on materials so they can weaponize pathogens. So we need a global health surveillance, shore up our global health surveillance systems and infrastructure. And the third thing is I think we need to get right with our multilateral partners and get right with NATO and everybody else. NATO, G8, G20. I used to work G8 and G20 issues at State Department. So I think we getting back into in their good graces will kind of help help us divide and conquer on dealing with all these issues writ large on a global scale.
For the group, this is the Problem Solvers Caucus. You got a chance to see several members. They talked about how they felt on the issues. They got a chance to see their demeanor. You got a chance to hear from them. And I want members to stay on because I'm going to talk to you in 1 second. But before I do, Problem Solvers Caucus, half Democrats, half Republicans, some in the Senate, some in the House. Mission is to work together to get things done. You heard them. Give me a word or phrase to describe the Problem Solvers Caucus based on what you heard tonight. Harold.
Mandatory.
Camille.
In the right direction.
Jim.
Absolutely love it.
Meredith.
Hopeful.
Michael.
Inspiring.
Brian.
Positive step.
Jamie.
Optimistic.
Spencer.
Good idea.
Alec.
Interesting.
RK.
Necessary.
Phoebe.
Necessary.
Pamela.
Back in the 80s, I was part of a diplomatic team that worked with Menachem Begin. And
this is
sometimes it takes, I know that. No, he's asked for a
word or phrase.
Word or phrase.
Sometimes it takes a bully. And if a bully created something like this, then it's possible this may achieve something.
Oh,
Mark.
Thank you so much, Jerry.
Respectful.
Kimberly.
Desperately needed.
Stephanie.
Disingenuous.
Lisa.
Part of the bloated bureaucracy.
Okay, I'm going to ask three of you to tell me why you feel the way that you do. And these are people, I'm choosing people who seem to be in the center. Jim, you voted Republican in the past, but you voted for Joe Biden this time. What do you think of the Problem Solvers Caucus?
I didn't vote I voted for Trump, but I'm the one that I think yesterday told I was one that would impeach him. So I think it's a great idea. I think I've been talking about this where we need both sides to start working together. And I got screamed at yesterday about this, but I think it's very important for both sides to work together because it seems like they're falling, everything's going farther apart. And I've never heard of this before. Why haven't I never heard of this before? That's what upsets me. I didn't hear about the two sides.
It used to be no labels. It used to be no labels, right? Is that correct?
No labels is the outside group. Problem Solvers Caucus is the actual name for the members on the inside. Kimberly, you're the one who used to vote Republican, but you voted for Biden this time. What do you think of this organization?
Oh, these are my people. I'm really, and I've been an advocate for the no labels. I know this is specific to the caucus in Congress, but the overall initiative, I'm very moderate. And I think these are the kind of leaders that we need right now, because, you know, I was sitting back watching a lot of the discourse as well. And you have to find people that can come to the middle ground and make the extremes in both parties realize that if you don't come to the middle and you don't find the surging number of independents and unaffiliated voters like us now, you're not going to win elections. So I think, you know, having this solid voting bloc and some reasonable people, you know, the way that they sway and their ability to bring in the people from the middle, they're going to be the ones winning the elections. That's my advice, my opinion.
Your reaction to this group?
I think it's fabulous. And as I stated before, I want to see an elimination of the political rhetoric and more effort toward the pragmatic. I want to see that people are actually looking for the common ground and have a mutual understanding that, yes, we can meet in the middle for common ground, but our tactics and our strategies may be slightly different to get to the same end that we all want. So I'm totally for it. And I'm an independent. I voted Democrat. I voted Republican. I'm in Maryland. I voted for Hogan. So I just want to see less rancor and less like just can we just talk about some real stuff instead of opinion and commentary and this and that. I just want to see the real thing, the real facts, and let's get down to business and get it done, because we all are hoping that Congress can get it together and move us to the next level of the American experience.